I was told by one of my friends that you're a very good follower of Mwalimu Nyerere's philosophy. Can you share with us a little bit about what you know?
Well, one, I feel that Mwalimu represents an era of leadership in Africa that actually believed in Africa and in nation building, building the identity of the continent and the country around values that would live beyond, individual and personal interests. So, I'm not too vested in the specific details of the philosophies that informed some of the policies that he implemented, like Ujamaa, but it's more about the spirit that drove him to basically forgo his own personal interests to build a nation. And I think that is, to a large extent, the core essence of great statesmanship and leadership, that you have to be able to forgo self, to do your duty as the head of state. I think that it's really one of the biggest challenges that we face today with politicians is that it's actually quite hard because we're very materialistic in a general sense of things. And so it's very easy to be subdued by the intensity of the moment. And for someone to forgo that for the goodness of a greater cause is very commendable. And I feel a personal obligation to profess that, and in many ways to inculcate it and get more people to understand it, because sadly it's become so alien that people, in many cases stereotype it in a negative way, so I believe that it's very positive because it's very necessary. You can't really build a nation on individual interests, so yeah, so I respect that contribution that he made to our country.
Okay. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, can you give us like a description of who he is and who he is to Tanzania, and what did he do for Tanzania, for like somebody who, like for example me, I was born here, born and raised in Tanzania, but I went away for school in New York when I was 12 years old. So most of my history that I have like the American history, but I've found myself where I kind of like not exactly sure of my Tanzanian history, and I'm trying to kind of like now as I'm an adult try to grasp the little bit that I have. Since you know a little bit more, can you be able to give me kind of like a rundown of like what Mwalimu Nyerere, where he started from and what he did for us, for the country? In the country. Well,
Mwalimu, I think one of the most commendable things is that he's a very normal Tanzanian, to a large extent, born from a chief's family, but in terms of everything, schooling, he followed a very local schooling process. In actual fact, one of the interesting things about Mwalimu is that he started his education when he was, I think, 12 or 13. So it's remarkable that such a person managed to take the kind of monumental steps that he took. The other thing about Nyerere that's worth noting is that he was a consensus builder. He was always the person who tried to bring together people. And his willingness to work with other freedom fighters of the day was very symbolic of this spirit that he had. So he was one of the people who bought into Kwame Nkrumah's liberation and Pan-African ideology quite early in the day. And arguably, one of the unique things about Mwalimu is that he's actually one of the few independence presidents who literally lived out the vision of Kwame Nkrumah, of Pan-Africanism and building a united Africa through liberating the countries of Africa. So Tanzania was for many a hotspot for freedom fighters who sought refuge and assistance from countries outside of their own to fight for their independence. Mwalimu was highly vested in the common man's plight. And really, I think one of the most controversial things about his legacy is his conviction with Ujamaa, because it was very representative of his belief that there were certain values that we couldn't forego if we really wanted to bring about development. And one of the most important values that he put at the fore was actually something that to a large extent today people tend to take for granted, and that's dignity. He was big on dignity. He felt that respect for humanity was more important than material gain, and that if our nation's progress would compromise on the dignity of the masses, then it's not worth it. So, Ujamaa was heavily entrenched in the need to culture a spirit of building a nation that centered around dignity. And today, if you're looking at, even today, when you're looking at, when we're talking about 2015, post-2015, these Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, we're actually talking about people-centered development. We're talking about the need to look at more inclusive methods of developing economies. And this goes back to this whole theory of dignity, because it's not enough to have an economy that's growing, but then the people who are most exposed to that growth are the ones who are least benefiting from that growth, and they're probably they're not growing with it, or they're being impacted negatively because of the impact of economic growth. So this focus on dignity, I think, is one of the interesting things that comes out of Mwalimu's life. And what people don't understand is that when we got our independence, we were a very different type of country. We had two engineers. We had two roads with tarmac. Two highways with tarmac. So we were not at a level where we had many options. The decision to bring everybody on board was in many ways a decision that was mandated by the circumstance at the time. We needed to find a method that would bring as many people on board so that we create an economy that is for the people, with the people, and by the people. That's the spirit of it. So it's very commendable that a person who, by virtue of circumstance, could have actually taken full advantage of the ignorance that was so dominant at the time to do his own thing. He still focused on bringing on board even those who could have been marginalized by virtue of just their situation.
If Mwalimu Nyerere was still alive today, how do you think he would go about how Tanzania is today? What do you think he would say about it?
Well, I think Mwalimu was for all seasons. One of the interesting things about Mwalimu is, even if you look at his history, the interesting thing about Mwalimu's history, even what people mostly remember about Mwalimu is what happened after he was president. You see, most of what we see playing out today, even on TV, when they show the clips of him, are clips of Mwalimu after presidency. You see? So this is a person who was able to reinvent himself with the same theme. he was always about the people. And so when he was president, he was trying to do his best for the people. And when he discovered that he just couldn't crack it to the level that was necessitated by the demands of the time, he resigned. But then again, when he saw, that the country was in distress and there was a need for someone like him in his capacity to come out and, stand firm around certain values, he came out. And so I think Mwalimu would never tire. He would always be someone who would want to make sure that the interest of the masses is always kept at heart. And so he was, I think, a great reality check for us as a country. Mm-hmm. And if he was to be alive today, I'm sure he would continue in his pursuit to just keep us on our toes. Because again, like I said, it's not in our nature, mm-hmm. as human beings to forgo self for others. In our nature is to actually prioritize self. So to have someone in your country at such a level who's been privileged to have such opportunities, but then his focus to be not self is very special. Yeah. Yeah. So we're special as a country, I think, because of that.
Okay. What's the relationship between Tanzania and South Africa?
Well, clearly, the relationship, I think, is evident. Mwalimu was phenomenal in that he was always receptive to the liberation movement. And what people may underplay today is that he never said no. He never said no. Anybody who was fighting for the rights of his people, Mwalimu was always there to help and to be of assistance. And he feared nothing, I believe, more than maybe the power of God. And so South Africa was one of the friends of Tanzania, and Mwalimu gave us, gave South African freedom fighters a place to call home during the movement in South Africa. It's an amazing and monumental story of the possibility for African unity, demonstrated in a very humble way between these two countries. And the fact that it actually can happen, is amazing. And we should be able to talk about that, and we should get people to understand what that means in terms of the impact for humanity and the value that it has on our cultural essence as a people.
Wow. I just learned a lot from you, from just sitting down with you and speaking to you. And I wish I could be able to continue talking to you. Okay. Just share with us your name so we are able to know and what you do.
My name is Constantine Magavila, and I am a people person. My life evolves around lifting the hopes of people, and that's really what I can say is the core of my purpose in life, just to help people see the worth that they have, and hopefully do something about it.
Wow, thank you. That's it.